Hey everybody, welcome to the Happy Harvest Homestead. Many of us farmers have recently experienced some really bad winter weather this past week. And I, for one, was kind of nervous about keeping our animals warm during the winter, especially because we try to avoid using heat lamps or heated water or other modern ways of keeping animals and animal supplies warm. The only strategy we use to keep our animals warm is just blocking them from the wind and the wet, and giving them a sheltered small place for them to naturally warm with their body heat, and then we just replace their waters when they freeze. Now that the worst of the storm is over and things are starting to warm up again, I am very pleased to tell you that all of our goats, chickens, rabbits, and dogs and cats not only survived, but thrived during this really bad storm. Let me show you what we did that was so successful. Let's start out with the chicken coop. We already have an enclosed coop that keeps our flock pretty dry and warm. The one area we were lacking though was the windows. Because we had to lock all the chickens in the coop all the time and did not give them access to their outdoor run, I knew they were going to need some light in there. So we recycled some bits of plastic. I believe some of this is like old Tractor Supply pine shavings bags, and stapled those to the windows so light could get through, but cold air and snow couldn't. Then with the windows blocked and the doors closed, the chickens stayed pretty warm in there. Though their water still froze occasionally, there were several times when water buckets outside would freeze, but their water bucket didn't freeze because it was so much warmer in the coop than it was outdoors. I did something similar with our rabbits. The rabbit hutch was pretty easy. Because it was made of wood, it was easy to just screw some bits of wood on and staple some bits of recycled plastic. Because the cage floor is wire, they get natural light from there, so I didn't have to worry about giving them see-through walls or anything. But the wire rabbit cage was harder to do because there's no wood structure to just screw or staple in. Instead, we propped up some pallets to kind of act as walls, and it actually worked pretty well. But because we had to screw the pallets together so they wouldn't blow off in the wind, I couldn't access some of the doors. I did leave an area in the middle where I could get to so I could, refresh their food and water and hay and stuff. But this is not a really good permanent solution for the entire winter because, I wasn't able to check their nest boxes, or I couldn't, grab any rabbit if I needed to, take them out for some reason and do a check on them. But the pallets worked great for the few days we needed them. In both the rabbit hutch and the rabbit cages, in addition to just putting some solid walls up to block wind, we also gave them nest boxes with straw in the bottom as areas to snuggle up in even more. Because their wire floors let in a lot of cold air and a bit of wind in addition to a lot of good light, I wanted to make sure they had even more protection, and giving them a little space for their body heat to warm up and a little solid floor was a perfect solution. Alright, now let's talk about the rabbit tractors. These were a little bit more difficult to figure out how to protect because, kind of like the cages, there was no wood to screw into. I ended up putting this tarp. I'm not sure if you can even tell what's under here, but there are two tractors raised up off the ground with cinder blocks, so they're like tractor cages. And then I put this huge tarp all over both of them, and that actually worked pretty well. Though taking it on and off to be able to access the tractors and feed and water the rabbits inside with snow covering it and stuff was really hard. Also in the tractors, like in the cage and hutch, we had nest boxes for them to snuggle up in as well. Then I think the easiest of all the livestock to keep warm were the goats. We already have this awesome enclosed barn. All I had to do was keep the doors closed. So as you can see on the left, the goat side door is closed, and on the right, the rabbit side door is closed. Then also the smaller people door I kept closed, so the goats were just stuck in a nice warm barn. And I was able to turn on and keep on the electric light all the time, so they weren't left in the dark the whole time. Also, like the chicken coop, their barn stayed so warm that often the rabbit waters that were more exposed to the elements would freeze, but the goat water inside the barn stayed warm. And even though the barn was more protected than the rabbit hutches, we also have little hidey houses in here for the goats to stay in as well. And Tessa especially really liked sleeping in a hidey house, so that was nice. And then as part of the goat barn, in one of the stalls we have our little chicks. They're not so little anymore though, but they were just part of the barn, so we didn't have to do anything special for them. They just were in there too, and therefore stayed warm with the goats. Then keeping the cats and dogs warm was pretty easy. For the cats, we just locked them all in the garage, which, like the barn, is fully enclosed, and then the windows give them natural light. The hard part was keeping them in the garage though, because they kept wanting to get out. And then both of our dogs have little igloos with flaps on the front. Oh, there's some straw in the bottom too. So they just snuggle up in there and their body heat keeps them warm. Even though all the animals survived and did okay during the storm, they definitely didn't like it. They especially didn't like being cooped up so long. So their favorite part of this whole ordeal was once the worst of the weather was over and I let them out again. 2 of the 4 cats have already gotten out. So I'm just gonna let the cats out early. I'm waiting till tomorrow for everyone else, but if the ones outside want to come back in, I want to make sure they'll be able. Are you ready, Roxy? Now that it's warmer out, all the other animals get to be set free, so you have to be locked up. Come on, Roxy. Good girl. Bye. I know, you're so sad. I'm sorry. All right. First animals. Let's turn on the barn light. Then goats. Guess what? You can come out now. Come on. Yay! Hooray! Come on, everybody. The cats look like they're enjoying being outside in the sun. Okay, chickens, are you ready? Come on out. Look at these super cute little freshly made goat prints in the snow. They're probably from one of the twins. They're so cute and small. The rabbits don't really get anything special done. I might take down a little bit of their shelters so as the weather continues to warm up, they have a little bit more fresh air, but for the most part everything stays the same for them. But these rabbits do get a drastic change now that the weather is warming up again. We get to take the tarp off of their tractors during the day. Hooray! Since I already have it all set up, I'm probably just going to leave the tarp off of the tractors but not completely off so that at night I can put it back over, since it often does get cold in the night again. And when the next big storm comes, I won't have to manhandle this into place like I had to do a few days ago. There we go. That's much better now. So that's how we kept our animals safe and warm during this really bad storm, without heat lamps, heating pads, or other expensive or dangerous equipment. The simple act of keeping them out of the wind, out of the wet, and giving them a small place to go into and collect their body heat was more than enough, and we're definitely going to do things the same way as more storms come throughout the winter. And hopefully some of you guys can try our methods as well. Thanks for watching!